She didn't just leave. She dismantled you. Piece by agonizing piece, she deconstructed the man she claimed to love, leaving behind a hollowed-out frame of confusion and need. Searching for answers in the rubble, trying to understand how the absolute totality of your poison that drove her away. You made her the sun in your universe, and now you're left shivering in the cold, dark void she left behind. Stop looking for her reasons. Her reasons are irrelevant. The fatal error wasn't in her logic. It was in yours. She didn't reject you. She rejected the crushing weight of your happiness, a burden you forced upon her shoulders without her consent. You think you were offering love. But what you were really offering was a full-time job with no pay. The complete and total management of your self-worth. She quit. Do you remember the exact moment the power shifted? It wasn't a loud explosion. It was a subtle, chilling silence. Perhaps you were at a dinner with her friends. You were trying to be charming, trying to fit in, telling a story you thought was engaging. You looked to her for that familiar spark of validation, that small, approving smile that had become your fuel. But it wasn't there. Instead, her eyes were distant, glossed over. She was physically beside you, but her mind was 1,000 miles away. She laughed at someone else's joke, a genuine, effortless laugh that you hadn't heard directed at you in weeks. In that instant, you ceased to be her partner. You became an accessory, a ghost at the table. You felt a cold dread creep up your spine as the horrifying truth settled in. You were no longer a participant in her life. You were an audience member, and she was growing tired of your applause. You tried to reclaim her attention, maybe by touching her arm or interjecting a comment, but your touch was met with a barely perceptible flinch. Your words hung in the air, unanswered, evaporating into the background noise. That was the moment of your castration. The moment she realized your entire emotional state was tethered to her every glance, and the attraction died, replaced by a mixture of pity and contempt. The German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, a master architect of human misery and will, would have diagnosed your condition with surgical precision. He saw the world not as a stage for romance, but as a brutal arena of competing wills. He understood that to chain your personal peace to something as volatile and uncontrollable as another person's affection is the highest form of self-betrayal. You didn't just give her your heart, you gave her the remote control to your soul. You programmed her to be your source of joy, your validation, your purpose. And in doing so, you relieved yourself of the burden and the glory of creating your own. Schopenhauer wrote that, "A man can be himself only so long as he is alone," a brutal truth you ignored. You dissolved your own identity into hers, hoping two halves would make a whole, only to discover you had simply erased your own equation. She didn't fall out of love with you. She lost respect for the man who willingly abandoned himself. Women are not drawn to a project they must fix, or a void they must fill. They are drawn to a solid, self-contained force. You presented yourself as a kingdom, but handed her the crown, the scepter, and the keys, begging her to rule. No queen wants a king who bows before the battle has even begun. The fatal mistake was not that you loved her. The mistake was that you made her your god, and gods are notoriously fickle. You performed rituals of devotion, made sacrifices of your time, your hobbies, your very identity, all laid at her altar. You thought this worship would bind her to you. Instead, it terrified her. It showed her that your internal world was barren, a desolate landscape that only she could ear. Neediness, this gaping hole you expected her to fill, is the ultimate repellent. It reeks of weakness. It signals that your life lacks its own intrinsic purpose. The paradox, the one that is currently tearing you apart, is that the more you gave, the less she wanted. The harder you tried to pull her close, the faster she ran. She wasn't running from your love. She was running from the empty throne you left behind inside yourself. The mistake wasn't loving her. The mistake was how you loved. In the cold, hard logic of a long-dead philosopher lies the key not just to understanding your defeat, but to engineering a reversal of power so complete, she will question everything she thought she knew about you. The question is not if you can get her back. The question is, can you become the man she is incapable of leaving? Before we dissect the strategy to rebuild your throne from the ashes of your last defeat, a tactical necessity must be addressed. This channel, psychological dominion, is not a place for consolation. It is an armory. If you are ready to trade victimhood for victory, then subscribe now. Activate all notifications, because every lesson is a weapon, and you cannot afford to miss a single deployment. Like this video to signal that you are no longer content with being a pawn in someone else's game. And in the comments below, I demand 2 pieces of intelligence. First, declare your location, the city or country you are watching from, so I know where our legions are gathering. Second, and more critically, describe the one moment you felt your power completely and utterly stripped away by another person. Do not share your sorrow, share your data. Your war stories are the raw material for our future strategies. We will turn your past defeats into the blueprint for our collective domination. Now, let the rearming begin. Your defeat was not an event, it was a process. A slow, systematic dismantling of your authority that you not only permitted, but actively participated in. You think she left you, but the truth is, you had already left yourself long before she walked out the door. Let's dissect this with the cold precision of a surgeon examining a corpse. Here to understand the pathology of your failure, so it is never repeated. The first phase of your downfall was emotional concession. It began subtly. She expressed a minor dissatisfaction, perhaps about a friend you spent time with, a hobby that consumed your evenings, or a way you dressed. It was a test, probe sent out to measure the defenses of your kingdom. A healthy, sovereign man would have heard her, acknowledged her feeling, and continued to operate from his own frame of mind. His response would have been calm, centered, and unwavering. I understand you feel that way, but this is important to me. He doesn't argue, he doesn't placate. He simply states his reality. But you didn't do that. You saw her displeasure not as a data point, but as a crisis. Threat to your supply of validation. So you conceded. You saw that friend a little less. You put the hobby on the back burner. You changed your shirt. Each concession was a small, almost unnoticeable surrender of territory. You thought you were being a good boyfriend, a nice guy. What you were actually doing was communicating a fatal piece of intelligence. Your emotional state is more important than my own principles and identity. You are my center of gravity, she tested. You yielded. She won. This initial victory for her was the beginning of the end for you. With every small piece of ground you gave up, the foundation of her respect for you crumbled. Women are not attracted to a man they can change. They are attracted to a man who changes them. They desire a mountain, an immovable force of nature that inspires them to climb, not a pile of sand they can reshape at will. From emotional concession, you descended into the second phase, the loss of control. This wasn't about losing control of her, it was about losing control of your own emotional state. Her moods began to dictate yours. If she was happy, you were permitted to feel a fragile sense of relief. If she was distant or upset, your internal world plunged into chaos. You became a hyper-vigilant detective, constantly scanning her for micro-expressions, for shifts in tone, for any clue that might explain the weather inside her mind. You remember the agony of a text message left unread, that knot in your stomach, the frantic rereading of your own words, the desperate search for the mistake you must have made. That was you, a prisoner, rattling the bars of a cage you built yourself. Schopenhauer would have called this the complete abdication of the will. Your will to live, to find joy, to feel peace, was no longer your own. It was a flickering candle flame that she could extinguish with a single sigh or a delayed response. A sovereign man's emotional state is generated internally. It is a furnace, not a mirror. It radiates warmth regardless of the weather outside. Your emotional state became a mirror, reflecting only her. And when she looked at you, she saw not a man, but a reflection of her own power over you. This is not attractive. It is terrifying. You asked her to be your partner, but you made her your emotional regulator, a job she never applied for and grew to resent. Silence she gave you, the distance you perceived. That wasn't inattention. Her silence is dominance. It was a calculated demonstration of her power. She knew that by withdrawing her attention, she could send you into a tailspin. She was conditioning you, training you to be more compliant, more eager to please, all in a desperate attempt to regain that warmth. You were a subject in her experiment, and your frantic neediness was the proof that her methods were working perfectly. The third phase was the relentless search for validation. Having outsourced your self-worth, you now needed constant proof that your investment was safe. This manifested in pathetic, needy questions. Do you love me? Are we okay? Did you have a good time tonight? Each question was a plea. It was you on your knees, begging for a scrap of reassurance from the throne you had given her. You thought you were communicating your feelings, being open and vulnerable. What she heard was weakness. She heard a man who was so unsure of his own value that he needed her to constantly reaffirm it for him. Think about the nature of those questions. A man who is secure in himself and his relationship doesn't need to ask if everything is okay. He knows it is, because he is the architect of his own reality. If there is a problem, he addresses it from a position of strength, not from a place of fear. He doesn't ask for permission to be loved. His actions, his presence, his very being are the reasons he is loved. Your constant need for verbal confirmation revealed the horrifying truth. Without her approval, you felt you were nothing. This is the opposite of attraction. Attraction is built on mystery, on strength, on self-possession. You presented her with a puzzle that was already solved, a book with the last page taped to the front cover. You gave her everything, leaving nothing for her to earn, nothing for her to wonder about. She wasn't just your girlfriend, she was your one-woman audience, and she grew tired of the endless, repetitive performance of your need for applause. The more you asked for her validation, the less of it she had to give. It's a simple law of emotional economics. Scarcity creates value. You made your validation abundant and cheap, and in doing so, you rendered it and yourself completely worthless in her eyes. This led directly into the fourth, and perhaps most degrading phase, affective dependency. At this point, you were no longer a partner in a relationship. You were an addict, and she was your drug. Your entire schedule, your decisions, your very thoughts began to revolve around a single objective: securing your next hit of her attention and affection. Canceled plans with friends if she was suddenly free. You abandoned hobbies and interests that didn't include her. Your world, once a vibrant landscape of personal ambitions and social connections, shrank to the size of a single person. You may have told yourself this was love, this was devotion. It was not. It was obsession born from a terror of being alone with yourself. You had become so empty inside, so devoid of your own purpose, that the silence of your own company was unbearable. Schopenhauer wrote, "The cheaper a man's own company is to him, the more he will seek that of others." Your own company had become worthless to you, so you desperately sought hers. This dependency is the ultimate respect killer. No woman wants to be a man's entire life. She wants to be an exciting, cherished part of his already amazing life. She wants to be the queen of a flourishing kingdom, not the sole inhabitant of a barren desert island. When she looked at you, she didn't see a king. She saw a refugee, and her heart, which once held admiration, was now filled with a mixture of pity and contempt. Pity for the man you had become, and contempt for the man you had failed to be. This is the point of no return. This is where her attraction doesn't just fade. It inverts into repulsion. She feels suffocated by your need, trapped by the weight of your vacant soul. Her desire to escape becomes a primal, biological imperative. The final, fatal blow was the breaking of the silence. This happened during an argument. Perhaps she was being distant, or you felt insecure. Conflict arose. A powerful man uses silence as a weapon. He withdraws, not out of passive aggression, but as a demonstration of control. He removes his attention, the very thing the other person craves, forcing them to come back into his frame. He creates a void that she feels compelled to fill. He understands that the person who talks first, who seeks resolution first, is the one who concedes power. But you couldn't stand the silence. The tension was a fire, and your lack of self-worth was the kindling. You broke. You pursued her. You demanded to talk things out. You sent a barrage of texts, made pleading phone calls, desperate to close the emotional distance she had strategically created. And then, you committed the ultimate act of surrender. You apologized. You said, "I'm sorry," for a crime you didn't even commit, simply to end the discomfort of her disapproval. When you begged for forgiveness, you signed your unconditional surrender. In that moment, you communicated the most damaging message possible. My comfort is less important than resolving this conflict in your favor. I'm willing to accept blame, even when I am not at fault, in exchange for the return of your affection. We tested you, and you failed spectacularly. You proved beyond any doubt that you had no spine, no core, no unbreakable principles. You were willing to sacrifice your dignity on the altar of her approval. From that point on, you were not her equal. You were her subject. And a queen has no sexual or romantic interest in her subjects. She may keep them around for their utility, but her desire is reserved for other kings. Perhaps you are listening to this, and your mind is screaming in protest. I was just trying to be a good person. Isn't communication key? Isn't it good to be vulnerable and apologize when there's a problem? This is the voice of your conditioning. It is the slave's mentality that society has sold you as a virtue. Let's shatter these objections with cold, hard logic. Communication is not key. Effective communication is key. Pleading, begging, and demanding answers is not effective communication. It is a broadcast of your desperation. Vulnerability is not showing your weakness. It is having the strength to be authentic without needing a specific outcome. Crying to her because you're afraid she'll leave is not vulnerability. It's emotional blackmail. Apologizing for things that are not your fault is not being a good person. It is being a coward. It is a strategic retreat born from the fear of her emotional withdrawal. You have been taught a script for relationships that guarantees your own subjugation. You have been taught to be soft when you should be firm, to speak when you should be silent, and to bend when you should stand tall. The world does not reward nice guys. It rewards strong men. Respect is not given. It is commanded. And you have been commanding nothing but disrespect with every concession, every plea, every needless apology. The fall is not visible. It doesn't happen in a loud, dramatic fight. It happens in the silence. It happens in your hesitation to say no. It happens in the yes you utter out of fear of her reaction. It happens in the 1,000 tiny moments where you chose her comfort over your own self-respect. You have been bleeding out from 1,000 paper cuts, and you never even noticed you were wounded until you found yourself completely drained of all power. This pattern isn't confined to your romantic failures. Look at your life. At work, did you take on extra projects without extra pay, hoping your boss would notice your dedication? That was you seeking validation, conceding your time for a scrap of approval. With your friends, are you the one who is always available, who adjusts your schedule to fit everyone else's? That is you signaling that your time is less valuable than theirs. These are all symptoms of the same disease, a core belief that your worth is external to you. You are a professional beggar, panhandling for respect in every area of your life, and then you act surprised when you are treated like one. No one is coming to save you. There is no external force that will bestow upon you the respect you crave. It is a fortress that must be built from the inside out, brick by painful brick of self-discipline and unwavering principle. You must become your own source of validation, your own purpose, your own immovable center of gravity. You must learn to cherish your own company so profoundly that another person's presence is a welcome addition, not a desperate necessity. This is the beginning of your rearming. It starts with this brutal diagnosis. You must see the enemy clearly. And for now, the enemy is the man you have allowed yourself to become. Before we proceed to build the war machine that will be your new identity, we must consolidate our forces. This is not a journey for the weak-willed. You are committed to forging a spine of steel and reclaiming the throne of your own soul, then perform these actions now as a declaration of your intent. Subscribe to Psychological Dominion and activate all notifications. Each video is a briefing for the next phase of your campaign, and missing one is a tactical error you cannot afford. Like this video to signal that you have absorbed this diagnosis and are ready to accept the harsh realities of power. Now, a critical question in the comments below, one that requires brutal honesty. What lie do you tell yourself most often to justify your weakness? Is it, I'm just a nice guy? Is it, relationships are about compromise? Or is it, it's better to keep the peace? Name the lie. Expose it to the light. By articulating your own self-deception, you take the first step in dismantling it. Your confession is not for absolution. It is for We will use these lies as targets in our future training. Acknowledge your programming. Only then can you begin to overwrite it. There is no going back for the weak man. Let that sentence brand itself into your mind. The man she discarded is dead. You are not here to resuscitate a corpse. You are here to build a new entity from the salvaged materials of your defeat. Any thought of winning her back must be purged. That is the objective of a slave seeking his master's approval. Your objective is to forge a reality so powerful, so self-contained, that her return or absence becomes a trivial detail in the grand strategy of your life. This is not an emotional recovery. It is a tactical reconstruction. We will now issue the commands for this process. Obey them without question. Your first command: cut the excess. You are a soldier preparing for a long and brutal campaign. A soldier sheds every ounce of unnecessary weight. Your excess weight is your emotional attachment and your digital footprint of her. Effective immediately, you will perform a complete and total amputation. Delete her number. Do not just remove it from your favorites. Erase it from existence. Block her on every social media platform. Not to make a statement to her, but to make a statement to yourself. You are severing the channels through which you bled out your power. Every time you check her profile, you are reopening the wound. Every time you reread an old message, you are injecting yourself with the very poison that weakened you. This is not a game of who can appear more indifferent. This is a surgical procedure to remove a cancer. Starve yourself of her. You must become a ghost in the digital world she occupies. Your absence must be so complete, so sudden, and so unexplained that it creates a vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum, and so does the female psyche. She is used to your constant, predictable presence. By vanishing, you erase the man she knew and create a question mark in his place. A question mark is infinitely more compelling than a period. Your second command: install silence. Your silence is now your primary weapon. It is not the passive-aggressive silence of a child who didn't get his way. It is the cold, calculated silence of a predator. In the past, your words were cheap. You used them to plead, to explain, to seek validation. You flooded the market with your communication, and it became worthless. From this moment forward, your words are a scarce and valuable resource. If she attempts to contact you, and she will, if only to satisfy her curiosity about your disappearance, you'll not respond. Not immediately. Not that day. Maybe not at all. Every unanswered text, every missed call is a deposit into your new account of power. You are reprogramming her. You are teaching her that access to you is no longer a given. It is a privilege, and it has been revoked. She is used to being the center of your universe. Your silence communicates that your universe no longer requires her as its son. This will be excruciating at first. Your addict brain will scream for a fix. You will draft 100 replies in your mind. This is the withdrawal. You must endure it. Schopenhauer observed that the will is a blind, striving force, always seeking satisfaction. Your will has been conditioned to seek satisfaction from her. You must now discipline your will, chain it, and force it to find satisfaction in self-control. The man who can control his own reactions is the man who controls the interaction. Do not reconquer. Replace with a sharper silence. Your third command: control the reaction. This is the essence of your transformation. You must become the master of your internal state. Previously, she was your emotional puppeteer. Her mood dictated your reality. Now, you cut the strings. This is achieved through a relentless, obsessive focus on the construction of your own hierarchy. This is not a distraction. It is the mission. Your new life is a tripod of power: physical, financial, and social. Physically, you go to war with your body. The gym becomes your temple and your forge. You will lift weights that are heavier than your past failures. You will run until the voice of your weakness is drowned out by the pounding of your own heart. Your physical transformation is a non-verbal broadcast of your new discipline and power. It is a statement she cannot ignore. Financially, you become a machine of production. You pour every ounce of your focus into your career, your business, your craft. Money is a crude but effective measure of power and competence in the world. By increasing your financial status, you increase your options and your freedom. You are no longer a man who needs a woman to complete his life. You are a man building an empire that a woman would be privileged to join. Socially, you rebuild your kingdom. You reconnect with strong, ambitious men. You build a network that is a source of power, not a distraction. You cultivate a life that is so engaging, so full of purpose and adventure, that a relationship becomes an enhancement. You must be an absence that carries weight, not a presence that begs. This reconstruction is a plan, not a hope. It is an algorithm you execute daily. When you inevitably cross paths with her again, or if you strategically decide to allow minimal, unpredictable interaction, the man she encounters must be unrecognizable. He does not speak of the past. He does not seek closure. He is polite but distant. His time is limited. His focus is elsewhere. He is not hostile. He is indifferent. Indifference is a more powerful statement than hatred. Hatred implies she still matters. Indifference implies she has become irrelevant. Arthur Schopenhauer wrote, "The greatest wisdom is to make the enjoyment of the present the supreme object of life." Your past strategy was to make her the supreme object of your life. Your new strategy is to make your own mission, your own present moment focus on self-mastery, the supreme object. She will sense this shift. She will feel the loss of her power over you, and it will be a shock to her system. The man who wants to be loved will be discarded. The man who imposes his presence, who radiates a self-contained power, will be feared. Fear, in the currency of attraction, is a far more valuable commodity than pity. You have been given the initial schematics for your own reconstruction. The path is clear, but it demands sacrifice and unwavering discipline. This is not a quick fix. It is the forging of a new soul. If you are truly ready to abandon the man you were and build the man you are destined to be, then you must declare your allegiance. Subscribe to Psychological Dominion immediately and activate all notifications, for this is your new command center. Like this video as a signal that you have received and understood these orders. Now, answer this in the comments below, and do not hesitate. If you had to describe the man you will become in 1 year from today using only 3 words, what would those 3 words be? This is not a wish. This is a contract with yourself. Write your 3-word manifesto and let it be the first brick in the foundation of your new empire. Let us speak now of the endgame. The strategies, the discipline, the relentless reconstruction. They were all leading to this moment. Not a moment of reconciliation, but a moment of absolute severance from the man you were. You have been reforged in the fires of your own will, hammered into a weapon on the anvil of your discipline. Question that has haunted you, the one that festered in the darkness after she left. Can I? The wrong question. It is the question of a slave asking if he can return to a comfortable plantation. The only question a king asks is, how vast can my empire become? Her chapter in your story is over. What you are writing now is an epic, and she is, at best, a footnote in the introduction. Remember the hollowed-out man she dismantled? He is a memorial to your past weakness, a monument you have now walled off. She expects that man to still exist somewhere beneath the surface, waiting, wounded. She believes that with the right word, the right nostalgic prompt, she can summon him again. She is wrong. You did not just heal. You amputated the diseased limb of your neediness. She inevitably reaches out, driven by curiosity or a moment of lonely ego. She will be searching for a ghost. Her text message will arrive, a probe sent into the void she created. In the past, that notification would have been a siren's call, sending your heart racing with a pathetic mix of hope and anxiety. Now, you will see it, and you will feel nothing. It is data, a signal from a forgotten territory. You will not reply, not in an hour, that day, maybe not ever. This is not a strategy to make her want you more. That game is over. This is a statement of fact. Her access to your world has been permanently and irrevocably terminated. Her mind will not be able to process this. She is conditioned to your reaction. Your frantic pursuit was a fundamental law of her universe. Your silence breaks that law. First, she will feel confusion. Did he not get my message? Then, how dare he ignore me? This is her bruised and lashing out. Finally, as your silence stretches from days into weeks, a new, colder feeling will creep in. Fear. Not fear for your well-being, but fear of her own miscalculation. The power she held, the power to shatter your emotional state with a single word, is gone. She is pressing a button that is no longer connected to anything. She is a queen, shouting orders in an empty throne room. The man whose happiness was a burden she carried now radiates a self-sufficiency that feels like a personal judgment against her. Your indifference is the ultimate condemnation of her importance. Schopenhauer understood that the most profound suffering comes from the striving of the will for something it cannot have. You have re-engineered this dynamic completely. You have become the unattainable object, not through games, but through genuine transcendence. Your purpose is now your mission, your physical, financial, and spiritual development. You have built a life so rich, so demanding, so fulfilling, that she would have to compete for a sliver of your attention. And you have no interest in holding auditions. The chessboard has been flipped, but you didn't just walk away from the game. You melted down the pieces to forge a crown. You are no longer playing by her rules or any rules she can comprehend. You have created your own game, with its own victory conditions, and she is not even a player. She is a spectator, watching from a distance, wondering how the pawn she sacrificed became a king in an entirely different war. This is the nature of emotional vengeance. It is not loud or dramatic. It is not a confrontation where you list her faults. True vengeance is a life lived so well, so powerfully, that your past with her becomes utterly insignificant. It is her seeing you, or hearing of you, and feeling a pang of bewildered regret, not because she misses you, but because she realizes she completely misjudged the man you were capable of becoming. She discarded what she thought was a stone, and later discovered it was an uncut diamond. That realization is her burden to carry, not your victory to celebrate. Your victory is your freedom. Your victory is the peace that comes from being the sole author of your own emotional state. Respect is never requested. It is commanded by the sheer force of your own self-respect. It is imposed by your absence, your silence, and the chilling aura of a man who no longer needs anything from anyone. The final illusion to shatter is the idea of closure. Closure is a myth for the weak. It is a desire to have the last word, to understand, to be understood. You do not need closure because the book is not just closed, it has been burned. The ashes have been scattered. You are not the next chapter of your old story. You are an entirely new volume. Let her wonder. Let her construct narratives about what happened to you. Let her friends ask about you. The mystery you leave behind is more powerful than any explanation you could ever offer. You have become a legend in the story of her life. The man who simply vanished and reappeared as something more. Something she could no longer touch. This is your new creed. This is the manifesto of your dominion. You are the source. You are the authority. You are the prize. Your internal world is a fortress, and its gates are now permanently sealed to those who are not worthy of entry. You have learned the harshest and most valuable lesson of power. What you are willing to walk away from determines what you will ultimately have. You walked away from your need for her, and in doing so, you gained yourself. If you are prepared to burn your old identity to the ground and build an empire from the ashes, then your final orders are clear. Subscribe to Psychological Dominion. Activate all notifications, because this is no longer a channel, it is your arsenal. Like this video to declare that you have chosen strength over submission. And in the comments below, answer this one final question. It is the most important question you will answer today. What is the one thing you once gave away to someone else that you now swear you will never, ever surrender again? Declare it. Make it your unbreakable law. The greatest revenge is not her regret. It is your indifference.